All right, so this is Rita Carr, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission, calling the Friday, November 15th meeting to order at 10:09 a.m. This meeting is being video and audio recorded. It is being held in a hybrid fashion, in person and online. If you are participating online, please be careful about sharing your screen, as whatever you share will be recorded. This meeting will feature public comment. Please wait to be recognized and make all comments through the chair. Holly, does that cover everything?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So first on the agenda is public comment. Oh, well, sorry. I have to permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. So in the room, we have Clement Durkees.
Present.
George Butterworth.
Present.
Angus McLeod.
Here.
On Zoom, we have Sarah McLean.
Here.
Abby DeMolina.
Here.
Great. And that, no Diane, right? Okay. And then members of the public in person, we have Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust. And online, we have Hillary Rayport. And then for staff, we have Holly Backus, our preservation planner. Great. So first on the agenda, we have public comment. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Okay, great. Seeing none, we will move on to staff update from Holly.
Okay, I guess I'll just mention that the HTC had their NAPC's review.
That's
Final review, is that on here?
That's on the
Yeah.
agenda, yeah.
Okay, I guess we'll just defer to the agenda then.
Could you mention the streetlights?
Oh, yes. So the energy department, our office, is working with the both DPW and WPI students this year to basically look at the streetlights again, the decorative ones in the downtown. They have a pilot right now that's available on Main Street. I don't remember exactly where on Main Street.
Down by the fountain, like by and
Yeah,
Ralph
it's-
Lauren, yeah.
Ralph Lauren, great. And they want comments. They're looking for people's, wanting to know what their input is on what it looks like right now. Basically, the lens versus no lens. Do we like that? Is that historically appropriate, accurate? So, I would, if I can get some information from Lauren and the Energy Department as far as their survey goes, I can forward it to the commission. But I do know it's also out there in the ether world online from WPI students.
Okay, great. And maybe that's something, I don't know if Lauren would be interested in, or WPI would be interested in, like a formal comment from
I think they
the
would.
commission. And
Yes.
yeah, that's something we can agenda for December.
Perfect.
Great, okay. Then, so moving on, we have the ongoing survey work. And for the survey, the reconnaissance level survey that, the University of Florida Preservation Institute Nantucket received funding for through the CPC. They have their, kickoff event tomorrow from 10 to 4 at 27 York Street, the African Meeting House. And Holly will give a presentation to start, right, with
Yes,
queries.
I will be there in the beginning in the morning, probably stay for a couple of hours. Hopefully, we get a good turnout. This won't be the first, as you know, public participation. So just basically anybody out in the public that has information for the neighborhood, this is really going to be important. And they can gather that information and share it.
If we wanted to go, we should go in the morning, probably.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I would be going without any information about anything, so.
I think the biggest thing is, this is part of the survey work for, the survey plan that we have adopted. So I think the public being able to, one, just be interested to come. Two, if they have information for the area, since it's such a rich, there's a lot of intangible history that's, there, that we need to document. So, yeah, I think anybody who's interested to go would be great.
Yes, Amy?
Oh, I just, thank you for bringing that up at the select board meeting. I think that was great to get the message out. And because our camera's out, let's wait to be called on. Otherwise, the minute taker will have a hard time knowing who's saying what.
Mhm.
Point. Thank you, Angus. All right, and then do you have any update, Holly, on the request for qualifications for the fiscal year 2023?
I
Or
just,
was-
yes, sorry.
Wonderful.
I just received the final contract, fully executed revised contract, sorry, I'm trying to post up here. From.
Oh, yeah, that's last one.
Sorry, guys, from MHC, I'm multitasking as always, this week, and, that brought down, I had mentioned that they said that we could bring it down from 140 surveys down to 120, so that is reflected in there. And as soon as I get a moment, hopefully next week, this has been one crazy week, but I think next week's gonna be crazy too. I'll be starting on the, revised scope and get that out there, and I've already communicated with the finance department, I'll be in touch ASAP.
Okay, wonderful. So when do you anticipate that RFQ being posted?
I would like to have it posted next month.
Okay.
That would be like the ideal.
Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Okay, next on the agenda is the MOU for the Certified Local Government Agreement, which we've talked about over the past few months. Holly, are you able to
Yeah, I'm trying to
hear that?
get it up, sorry.
No, that's all good. Okay, sure, we'll just hold that discussion until you've got that up on the screen. Or are you logged into your email, Holly? I could email you the link.
No.
Okay.
I have a copy of it, but that doesn't,
The notes were
no.
both on.
I thought I had the packet, but I had the agendas. Packet for the 15th. that is
Yes.
today. So, this is, if you just go back real quickly, this is, it's on the packet about tomorrow's event.
And there will be snacks and drinks. How exciting.
You all can see that, right?
Yep.
Perfect, okay.
Yep.
All right, so who would like to pick up? Angus.
So I've expressed concern in the past about the note at the end, but also just, I mean, this is supposed to be a clarification of who does what. And I think that it would be really helpful for those looking at this document for the first time and maybe new to either of these boards that make up the CLG, that we have our mission statement on there. I think that succinctly describes what the NHC does. And I would be happy to make a motion to present the MOU back to the HDC with that added to the document and the last special note removed. That's all.
Okay, so just for the record and for everyone, the mission as it appears on the Town of Nantucket website is the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. Nantucket's important historic resources include structures as well as their setting and context, the American and Native American artifacts, and the island's special visual quality as expressed in the natural and built environment. The NHC advises the select board on matters of preservation and works with Nantucket's preservation planner, planning director, and other municipal agencies. It creates plans and guidelines for historic preservation, directs surveys of buildings and lands of archaeological and historic significance, and advocates for historic preservation. The NHC complements the local historic district commission, which is Nantucket's regulatory architectural review board. It also liaises with the Massachusetts Historical Commission and local preservation and conservation nonprofits. Any,
Got it to work.
oh, look at that,
Can see us
wow.
now. Yay.
Okay, we got there eventually, great. All right, so thank you, Angus. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Just
Summer?
my thought, just sitting here was if we're adding that, should we add the HDC mission? As
I would
as an
think so.
attachment?
Yeah.
Just for equal coverage.
Yes, I would agree with that. George? do you have
That
any
sounds
thoughts?
reasonable. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Angus? do you-
Oh, I just, there's something in the boilerplate that talks about the selectmen and some other things that don't, we've, since the select board, is made up of more than men, that's the only other sort of typo that I would change in what was presented by the HDC. That's just
Oh, yeah.
replacing wherever it says selectmen with, the select board.
Yes, so in, yes.
And
So
it mentioned
line
something
4
about,
under the tasks of the commission, it says yes, selectmen.
and something about, city council or something that again doesn't apply to us because we don't really have that. I'm sorry, I didn't put that on there. It's just a boilerplate, so some of it applies, some of it doesn't.
Right, and I'm wondering since, I believe since this was pulled directly from section 8D of chapter 40 Massachusetts general law, is it best to just not change anything and leave it exactly as it exists in the legislation?
Yeah, I don't change that.
Well, like in concept, I agree with what you're saying, Angus. I just wonder if it's simpler to have what this MOU says match exactly the law.
Right. I hear that.
Rita, I would leave it as
Yeah.
is, but I think we should note it, because Angus, I do think it's a fair point that like, also maybe at some point they'll update the law with the language and we want it to correspond to whatever's in the language of the law, but you know, like note it somewhere. Like the latest version, if you will.
Okay. Holly, could you, so, sorry, we're just gonna try and resolve the audio issue. Holly, maybe under, is the TV an issue, an option there? Or it's maybe microphone array?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're muted. Okay. So under audio and then under speaker, it's like, oh, let's try Samsung. Or no, that's your computer.
This right here?
Try that, yes. Could somebody online speak? Abby, could you repeat yourself?
Sure. So all I was saying is,
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, good.
So Abby, it was, I think we heard about half of what you said. Could you repeat your previous comment?
Sure. I was just saying we should leave it at, like, I think Angus's point is a good one, but maybe we like take note, but also I don't know if at some point they're gonna update the language of the law. And to your point, we want it to match whatever is in the law, but note, like, you know, if the latest version of whatever that is. That was all.
Okay, great, thank you. Sarah, did you have any thoughts?
I kind of stepped into this on the board when you guys had already like started this, so I'm not sure that I understand as much or as fully as to the backstory and the history behind it. I do think that just in terms of the last two meetings when we've had the discussions about it, what you've now decided to do in terms of adding our mission statement, and then also adding the HDC's mission statement and reiterating what those two should be, I think is a good step, and not sort of trying to change or like backstep in terms of like crossing over the lines, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That does. Any other commissioner comments before we go to the public? Okay, Hillary?
Yeah, hi. I might suggest that you put in some language saying that this agreement doesn't doesn't change the responsibilities allocated to each commission under the law. Because I think it's clear that you're not, you're doing this so that there can be understanding, to promote understanding and collaboration, but you don't want what's funny is.
I'm sorry, no, I'm not laughing.
The lights in the
In the-
room are flickering. I think the people next door are maybe turning off the lights.
Yes.
In this room.
It's like we have a ghost,
We have-
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say either that or it's like
We've got-
Halloween is
yeah.
still around.
Gremlins or something. I'm sorry, Hillary, please continue.
Sorry, so I think if I'm understanding the purpose of the memorandum, it's to promote understanding and collaboration, both between the commissions and among the public. And I wouldn't want anyone either at the local level or at the state to think that there's an agreement that supersedes what our law in the Commonwealth is, and the responsibilities and the powers of each commission are allocated by enabling legislation. So you might want to, I might suggest putting in something in the agreement to clarify that.
Yeah.
That it does, that it doesn't supersede any existing legislation subordinate to the existing legislation, and is intended for clarification and collaboration.
Okay.
Both the special act, chapter 3, and it's 300, 301,
The special
And-
action on the
and Massachusetts General Law 40.
18. Yes, okay, great, thank you. So at this point, if I may summarize what this discussion has been, so maybe for our December meeting, and hopefully that'll be the last time we have to deal with it. We can draft up a slightly amended version of this MOU that would include both the mission statements for the NHC and HDC, with a line to stipulate that nothing in this MOU is intended to supersede or change anything in either respective commissions enabling legislation. And without the special note at the end. How does that sound to everyone?
Sounds good.
Okay. Do we need a motion to have that? Or-
Quick question.
Yes, Abby, please.
Holly, would you be able to circulate the draft to us just so we see it before we're at the next meeting? Because
Yes.
then at the next meeting, is that when we should do the motion and approve the draft?
Definitely.
Mhm.
So, and do you think this is something that town council could weigh in on, like how this, how this should be phrased in terms of the stipulation that nothing here under supersedes the enabling legislations?
Yeah, I can find out how I can do that. It's not as
I
easy
think-
as walking
Yeah,
down the
since it
hall.
is like a legal document, I would love to have town council
Great point.
take a look at it. Yep. Okay, great. So we will, do we need motions?
Sorry. I was just saying that I would,
Okay,
and if, to Abby's point about having the draft before next meeting,
mhm.
I don't know when you want to have that done.
I mean, I can, if we're all in agreement, I can draw something up that we could perhaps circulate amongst the commissioners, and then if anyone has any issues, they can respond individually and
Yep.
directly to
To me.
Holly.
Yep.
And then you can take whatever version we have to town council. prior, so that we have it prior to the December meeting? Or should town council look at it before it goes to the commission?
I actually think it would be the other way around. I think that the commission needs to
Agreed.
agree
And then,
and then send it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if that's something that they see some concerns on, then we can take it from there.
I'm happy to make that motion.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Angus, seconded by, I'll say Clement. Angus on your motion,
Aye.
Clement? Aye. George?
Aye.
Sarah
Hi.
and Abby.
Aye.
I'm an I as well. Great, so I will, try and get something to you, Holly, by Monday, and you can send it around to the commission. Okay, great. So that brings us to the commission discussion of our minimum maintenance bylaw for contributing structures. This, we had a public comment from Hillary last meeting, and then since then, there's been 2 citizens complaints filed for, one for 10 New Well Street and 5 Candle Street, one for 29 Fair Street. Both of those complaints are in the packet, as well as the text of our bylaw, what it says. I think we just wanted to have a discussion to talk about what role the NHC could have in, these sorts of issues, and I don't know, Holly, did you want to say anything?
Just that the the HGC is taking it a very segmented approach, I guess is a good way to say it. Make sure that abutters, the owners are aware, make sure the commissioners are aware before they're really having a robust discussion. And I think that, in my opinion, makes sense. There's a process, and yeah, so.
What kind of enforcement is there of this whole thing? I just remembered the Mad Hatter. Any of you who've been around here for a long time remember the Mad Hatter, that they just demolished that by neglect. Been there for 120 years or something. And the owners of the property wanted to get rid of it, so they just let it disintegrate.
I wish I could opine on that. I heard stories about Mad Hatter. My stepmom was a server there. And I knew it was a great establishment on the island. It would be nice to know, a little bit of history before commenting on what happened and what didn't and how it should have been. But
they stopped using it as a restaurant, and then they stopped putting any money into it, and it just slowly.
we have a minimum maintenance bylaw to begin with, so, it's.
And who enforces that? Who tries to send out notices or?
Well, on that note, the town doesn't have a code enforcement division. We have, unfortunately, a reactionary. We're not going around, people aren't driving around going, okay, this needs to be written up, that needs to be written up. That just doesn't happen. So, what, I can't speak to what could change in that regard. I can just speak to, we have a law. People need to be put on notice, and they need to, bring things up to compliance, minimum maintenance, and it's not for them to completely, redo everything, but watertight, making sure shingles are replaced, the basic minimum maintenance, so.
Yeah, something I think it would be interesting for this commission to discuss is, as Holly was saying, there isn't this code compliance arm of the town government, but is that something, the NHC would maybe want to sort of be involved with identifying properties, contributing buildings that we think are potentially in violation of this bylaw, and then submitting request to the HGC for enforcement, or, we're tasked with protecting the National Historic Landmark, and that means protecting the contributing structures to that landmark.
That's a good idea, Rita. I mean, if it's within our purview, we could have like a regular, almost like a list or a database of properties. And then I don't know, and Holly, this might be a question for you. If like, is this something that we could have under the CLG, just as, is that part of like what we could say of like, hey, this is what has come up, and like bring it up to them? I'm just thinking of like a regular forum where we could present them to be like, hey, and we could even, from that, like going along this train of thought, is like, if we have these properties and we say, okay, these are the ones that we identified, and we like keep this kind of like ongoing list, you can say, okay, what has happened to them? Because like, example, like I know one that came up was like Woodbox, and you could say like, yes, they've done the work or they haven't, but all, you know, like in addition to having them identified, but then also kind of have like a status of, so even if a property gets on the list, if they fix it up or they bring it back up to compliance, like we would be able to note that, but then we could continue to be like, hey, you know, this has been on our list for a certain amount of time and it has not been addressed. But I'm just wondering if like it makes sense to have that kind of like existing database and having that touch point where we would already be liaising with the HDC and saying like, hey, I don't know if this is on your guys' radar, and it might already be, but at least we could have like a formal structure for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would all work. I do think the CLG, because, you know, it is the conduit, if you will, for having that receptive correspondence with one another. That might be an avenue to say, hey, the Historical Commission would like to assist in this issue. But I think too, it's a education component, I think too. There's this concept of people, even still to this day, believe it or not, will say, hey, I have this property and you know, do I need a permission to do X, Y, and Z from the HDC? Yes. And they're, well, I'm not in the historic district, you know, again, they are, you know, and I'm not talking about a historic structure or a contributing resource, or maybe it is, but it's, you know, maybe mid-century. The point of the matter is there's still people buying property on Nantucket, not understanding that the entire island is a local and national historic district, that we have no donut holes, that you're still required to follow the special legislation, special act, and building with Nantucket in mind, all those design guidelines. And it's amazing that, again, I think this is why the commission has been, and myself and Mary and both Abby and Hillary have presented on behalf of this commission to educate the realtors. And I think the realtors are that point of contact. There's a lot of turnover, as we've seen, of buildings on the island, and education, I think, is the best.
Yeah, Holly, to that point, maybe we should make sure to have a section when we do that presentation to the realtors to remind them. And like for this year, we could say like, hey, not sure if you guys are aware, and we could bring up the examples of the properties just because we have a bunch. But I definitely think you're right that we should include and like reinforce that message at the realtor session, because that's a good place. And to your point, I think it's not just about us identifying and knowing, but really the general public getting the awareness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Mary?
Thanks, Madam Chair. It occurs to me listening, Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust, listening to the conversation, that I think this commission, with your role as surveying structures, there seems like there's an opportunity to potentially use those surveys to point out which of the, like, I'm thinking, are there buildings, protected buildings that are surveyed that are in questionable condition? And is there a way that you can use that information to then help the HDC in their decision-making process, or also just look at what is the enabling legislation for historical commissions, and is there any any leeway here that would help you with enforcing? I mean, I know the minimum maintenance bylaw, the way it's written in our town code it's very clear that it's the HDC. I think too, Holly and I have talked about other towns on the Cape where the historical commission administers like the existing demolition delay bylaws. They actually go on the property, onto the structure to see the state things are in. So I wonder if maybe reaching out to Jen Doherty to see is there an opportunity to see what other commissions are doing and how you guys can stay in your lane, but help further the preservation of these buildings you're surveying.
Right. Thank you for that, Madam Chair, through you back to Mary on that. Thank you for bringing it up, because if the commission remembers when we started the fish lots surveys, that was one thing that PAL outlined. What are the two representative structures that we would want to, and basically through the survey work, we're outlining what are neglected, and 6 Fair Street was one, which look at it now, it's actually being, brought back to life, whether, I think it's the better of the two. It could have gone completely away. There were definitely attorneys asking me if somebody bought it, could they demolish it? So I'm glad to see that, at least there is that structure is being brought back to life from that perspective. And then the other one was the wood box. So it's been outlined, that those were two prominent, structures that needed quote unquote, assistance or, so outlined in that regard.
Yeah.
So.
Hillary? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sarah, did you want to go?
I can go before or after, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay, I'll just say what I was going to say, which is, so I've been doing a little research on legislation in historical commissions across the country. And it's interesting, a lot of historical commissions have required maintenance bylaws, 68%, but there's very little litigation around this topic, which scholars take to interpret that it's really not enforced very often. So I wanted to support the idea of speaking with Jen Doherty to find out about what the MHC would advise and like to see, because I think they would like to see these laws used more than they are. But locally, it's just for whatever reason been very difficult to apply these laws. I think as far as the Mad Hatter, I think our minimum maintenance bylaw is relatively recent. And from conversations just in the community, the person who brought that, who got that going, from my understanding, lived next to a house that was a fire hazard and was owned by somebody who was not maintaining it. And the advantage of these minimum maintenance bylaws is that it acts as like a motivator on an owner who doesn't want to deal with their property and it really makes them sell their property if they don't want to deal with it. It's like, that's probably what Sarah's going to say, because she has firsthand experience of that. So it's really, it is such a sticky wicket, because you don't want to be, you want to respect people's difficulties that they have. There are many, many reasons why someone might not be maintaining their private property, but you also have a responsibility to use the tools available for preservation. So in summary, I guess what I think would be the most productive way to make progress on using this tool effectively for preservation, in addition to, of course, noticing what buildings it should be applied to and raising those buildings for raising attention for those buildings, would be to encourage some kind of process. And I think we saw the HCC roughly outline a process, and this could be an opportunity to document it. So I'd like to see some documentation of a process, so at least something could be, we could have something to fall back on.
Thank you. Sarah.
So yes, I do have firsthand experience with the minimum standards, and I did acquire my house because the owner was forced to get the standards up. But what I can say is the previous owner, to her, because I went back through the HDC documentation, It was years that the neighbors were writing letters and showing pictures of the deterioration. And I guess my point, because it went on for probably 8 to 10 years before I acquired the property through two different owners, that the HDC in that instance and in another instance in a property 2 doors down on Lily Street, that if they do have a process, they don't tend to follow it across the board for the properties. And so I think that it needs to be a process that's applied to, all of the properties in the same way, if possible, and that there should be some sort of time limit, constraint. I'm not saying that it needs to happen within a month, 2 months, something like that, but this went on for years in both instances. And so there was really no teeth put into place by the HDC. The owners kept getting away with more and more, and the buildings just kept deteriorating. And the one in question on Lily Street, the owner was allowed to tear down a historic structure because they said that they would maintain the other structure on the property. And then they allowed that one to deteriorate to the point where they had to go back and get a demolition permit, even though it was sort of like we said we'd keep it. They skinned it up to 4 feet, let it deteriorate for years, and then ultimately the HDC allowed them to tear it down, which set a terrible precedent for anyone going forward, because they can now turn around and say, well, you allowed this on this property, even though it was a requirement of allowing a demolition of another structure on the property was to maintain the second structure. So, I don't know how we can do anything based on the HDC. Maybe that's something that for a warrant article to change this. I don't really know how that works. But I do think that if there is a timeline, a process, more teeth that they follow through, I think you're very right in terms of they don't want to get involved with homeowners and force them to do things, which is why there's so few people that are sort of held to this minimum maintenance. So I'm not sure that just determining which property should be on that list is going to be enough. I think there somehow needs to be something put in place where, they can look back on it and say, these are our guidelines and this is the process that we need to follow. So anyway, that's my experience. And that's just 2 properties kind of in the same vicinity. And I'm sure it's happened with a lot more, but that was years of not doing anything by the HDC.
Angus?
So, luckily, just because of the value and preciousness of property on Nantucket, this is really more the exception than anything else, but they do exist, and we've discussed maybe half a dozen so far in this meeting. I think it's as has been mentioned, I think this is a good collaboration opportunity for our CLG, for the HDC and NHC to collaborate and towards preservation. I think documenting how this process is going with the wood box is a good example of how things can progress in a responsive order. I think a month. So if for anyone who isn't familiar with what the HDC, how the meeting went regarding the wood box, is that basically we've given them until our December 10th meeting to make the structure weather tight. And even though it's been sort of in a similar condition for years, I can see the urgency of we need to do something today. But to Holly's point, the process is good, and this seems like a reasonable amount of time to do the minimum to be able to move things along, to be able to secure the longevity of the structure. So I think everything that we're talking about here is good. I like the idea of if we've got the bandwidth to take note of the structures that are threatened from neglect and keep that sort of an ongoing subject for us and to share with the HDC when we feel it's necessary to take a regulatory action on it, which they would be responsible for. And to Mary's point, I think that anything that we can do on our own that assists to this end is it would be beneficial as well. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Just thinking, I know, I mean, relying on our surveys, as Holly pointed out, we've caught 2 of the demolishing buildings. But it's going to be a long time before we do all of our surveys. And, you know, say Nantucket has demolishing buildings. I mean, I don't, you hear about these kind of through word of mouth, you know, oh, have you seen such and such? It's about to fall down. Some of them more obvious than others. And I just know that property in Sconset, Idlewild, that, you know, I hear rumors that the owner and the HDC have got some kind of a agreement where he's agreed to put X amount of money into it every year to keep it tight, or, I mean, but this is rumor. I don't know. I'm not privy to anything, any arrangement, or if they even would do such a thing. So I don't know how we as our commission could make this list and try to keep on top of it without professional knowledge. I mean, it's basically driving around and looking with your eyes, which is not professional. I mean, that's arbitrary.
Mhm.
But I'd like to have some kind
Some
of,
are sort of obvious.
yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have some kind of a listing.
Yeah, so I do think maybe. I think probably the best thing to do is to reach out to Jen at the MHC for guidance and to see what she thinks, what their experience has been with issues such as this. And, you know, obviously we'll be paying attention to what happens as things move forward at the HDC with these, complaints on these 3 properties, and then we can sort of go from there and maybe tackle something from a CLG perspective. Okay, so.
I
Yes,
have a
Robert.
property in mind that doesn't have the same historic significance as the wood box does, but there's a building that's really falling apart on Atlantic Avenue on the
Yeah.
east side of Atlantic Avenue.
Yeah, and, you know, talking
Maybe
about
already
our,
gone, too far gone, but
well, and also with talking about how our surveys can help identify properties that are
Neglected.
being neglected, you know, we do have, I think there are, a few within the West Monomoy survey area that maybe with this pin, survey will be identified. Okay, is there anything else on this?
I did
agenda
just-
item? Yes.
Want to mention one thing, and I'm glad of all the different, examples and concerns that have been addressed. I think this is important to, you know, to discuss and flesh out. But I did want to say that, you know, I think it's been outlined with the HGC's review that, you know, policies and procedures, rules of procedure, those type of things do need to be more in a codified kind of format, if you will. And I think this in itself would be on there. And I did want to mention, I don't think that I think each one of these are brought up on its own merits and not necessarily could set a precedent on one thing or another. There's a lot of things I think that need to be taken into consideration. For instance, as staff, and as somebody that's admired architecture from the whaling era and before and all the way through now, I can actually drive around and see stuff that's been done contemporarily and go, oh my gosh, the current commission wouldn't be allowing that to be constructed. But it was something that was done, say, maybe even 20 years ago. So I do think that the composition of a board Yes, we have design guidelines, yes, we have the special act, but the composition of the board sometimes allows things to be approved. As Angus knows, something can be approved with a 2-3 or 3-2 vote. So I guess my point is that how things are handled wouldn't necessarily be the precedent moving forward, but I do agree having an outlined process that the commission will have. And I think we're seeing that kind of organically happen through these concerned citizen forums. So I just wanted to mention that. I think that there is a move in a direction, and yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Ally, did you have anything or?
No, I mean, I agree with everything everybody says. I didn't know, do we need a motion or anything? Because if we did, I guess my thought was that the motion would be what you had mentioned, that the next step would be to have Holly reach out to Jen Doherty and get guidance on how other communities handle this. And then we can kind of like go from there, but I didn't know if you needed a motion for that.
I mean, I'm not sure if we, I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
I think Holly can just do that.
So
I
that's
think,
Holly, I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
yeah, okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I think we can move on now to the next agenda item, which is just sort of an FYI. So this is the Surfside Crossing archaeology discussion. So in October, it was at the October 23rd meeting of the select board. You know, they were discussing their letter that they are writing to the ZBA as they're in the you know, reconsideration process for the Surfside Crossing 40B. And Matt Fee raised the question of, has archaeology been done at the site at all? So that just, you know, caught my interest, obviously, as archaeology is within the purview of our commission. So I asked Holly, hey, do you know what's been done? Holly didn't know. So I reached out to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and their response was in the packet, which basically just confirms that yes, there has been an archaeological study completed at the Surfside Crossing site, which found completed by PAL in 2018. And it found no adverse effect. And although obviously the scope of the project has changed since that study was done, the site and the envelope and the area of disturbance has not changed at all. So that archaeology report from 2018 is still relevant. So just because this obviously has been something that's been getting a lot of attention and people might have questions, just FYI, that's the deal.
And with that note, just so that this commission is aware, I'll be sending the HDC's comments that they adopted yesterday at their special meeting. And with that, I was gonna also attach this, because my email is gonna be going directly to the select board, but town administration is also gonna be copied. So I can also say, in addition to address the select board's comment, or I should say Matt Fee's comment on that, we looked into it, and here's the document, so I'll be sending those to.
Wonderful, great. So if there's no more comments, no questions on that. Next up, so the Massachusetts Historical Commission has 2 upcoming webinars on November 19th and December 9th. So Tuesday, November 19th, just next week, there is Determining Historic and Architectural Significance at 10 a.m. And then on the 9th, it's Best Practices for Developing a Strong Local Preservation Program. So that is, you know, you can sign up on the MHC website, and I would encourage everybody to do so. Then there are also a few National Alliance of Preservation Commission webinars going on. We are, of course, members, as Holly always likes to remind us. I went to a webinar this week about legal issues for Preservation
Yep, on
Commission. That was,
Wednesday, yeah.
yeah, that was very interesting. Holly, did you have anything to add on this note?
No, but I think it's relevant and, I told the HTC too, I know I kind of bombard everybody with emails of when they come across my desk, hey, here's our webinar. I think it's important. I think education, you know, as much as you can do and stand and what your bandwidth is, I just encourage it.
Mhm. Yeah, great. And then related to the NAPC, their report, their review of the Historic District Commission, their final report and their amended addendum to their report was reviewed by the select board, on Wednesday. I think I went to watch. I think the main takeaway that I had was really that the HDC needs more staff. We need more people to support Holly, and I feel like we can sort of all what's the word I'm looking for? We can all like support that recommendation. I think just, and I don't mean this, please don't take this as any sort of slight, Holly, but I also feel like because you're so busy with the HDC, there are certain things with the NHC, like, you know, I know it took longer to have that RFQ revised than you wanted to because you've been so busy with the HDC. So I think we can all sort of say that we support having more preservation staff in the town. And if there's anything we can do to help make sure that that happens, please let us know.
On that note, I've appreciated this commission understanding the past year. It's not been easy. And, you know, at the end of the day, the regulatory body, as you know how busy they are, needs that support. And when you're down staff, you gotta just jump into it. And unfortunately, I had no choice. But I would have been remiss if I didn't step into the way I have been. So it doesn't make sense. Because at the end of the day, that's in my job description. So, but yes, so on that note, I know that there is a pending, land use specialist. That position is out there. So hopefully we'll have somebody soon to assist. But I also agree that we need more than just one additional person. We need more. So I appreciate the support.
Angus.
So should we write a letter to the select board to that effect?
How does everyone feel about that?
I think that maybe it's not clear. Comments were made that they weren't really aware that additional staff was needed with the urgency that it is. And maybe we can help emphasize that.
I just have a question. Who hires the staff, Holly? Like, if we need more staff, does it go through the select board? Or is it actually like town administration?
Town administration.
Just wondering, like, Angus, I hear your point, but I just wonder if we write a letter, does it have, like, should it go to the select board or should it actually go to someone who would hire more staff?
I'm sure the select board has an indirect role in this, I mean, what they prioritize now, if they wish to get involved.
Abby, are you suggesting
Well,
that
I
it
don't
go
think
to
they
like
hire
Libby
people.
Gibson and I mean, we could send it to one, two, or more groups or individuals. We could send it to town admin, we could send it to the select board. We could even copy it to the HTC so they know that we're trying to support them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we send it. I just think we should probably include like the other areas. And I like your idea, Angus. Maybe we send it to the select board, but we CC the HDC and town administration. So like they know about it as well.
I would go so far as to even plus.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear this meeting. Will that be significant enough? I mean, is this something that is gonna help? It would be nice.
I don't think
Or,
it could
I mean,
hurt.
I'd hate to,
I mean,
actually,
Clement, I don't think our letter is gonna get a person hired or not, but I think the point of us at least publicly showing our support, and I think like the point Rita had brought up and Holly did too, is that, you know, it affects not only the HDC, but it affects our commission as well, because, you know, there's only so many resources to go around. So we can just say from our perspective as the commission, we would support, as Holly said, like having as much preservation expertise as possible, so that if, you know, there's something that needs to be delegated or handled on a timely manner, we, you know, we don't have to be kind of backseat, if you will.
Hillary?
Thank you. So this is budgeting time in the town. I mean, this is the time when all of the managers are looking at their staff and deciding what they want to request of the town manager for their budget for next year. And you know, I learned a little bit about this because I helped Diane Coombs with her article to ask for an HCC administrator a couple of years ago. And what I learned is that, you know, you got to go through channels. So I would think that, well, I have two questions. So we heard Steven say we need more staff. We heard Val Oliver, commissioner, stand up and say we need more staff. We heard the select board say, sounds like they need more staff. We heard Leslie say, I don't totally remember the comment, but I found her, I really did not understand her comment. And so I wondered if maybe somebody could explain it to me. But Leslie, as the director of Plus, is the person that needs to ask for the money and for the position to be created. And she would direct that request to the town manager, Libby Gibson. I believe I'm correct about that, and I hope someone will correct me if I'm wrong. But from Leslie's comments at the meeting, she said they can't have more staff until they've, what did she say? Like something like they can't have more staff until they fix their enabling legislation. Is that what she said?
I remember it more as she was saying that like she, as a director of class, had not gotten a request for more staff from the HDC. Holly, is that what you recall?
But I think she was coming from, put staff concerns aside, it was more or less that a lot of the recommendations will require an amendment to the special act through a home rule petition.
And that's what excuse me, can I comment again?
Oh, yes, please.
That's what I don't agree with that statement. I don't think that statement should go unchallenged. Historic district commissions all across Massachusetts and the country have administrators. They hire somebody in the role of HDC administrator. I don't think there needs to be any change to anything to, you know, to come up with staffing. So that just seems to be some kind of confounding. I think we know what to do to get more staff, but there's not the will is not there. And I don't know, I mean, if she's saying that she hasn't been asked, she hasn't been asked. So that seems like that's where you need to start. It's, yeah, I'm finished.
So I just think based on what you're saying, so it sounds like, I guess, based on Angus, your idea, if we send a letter, maybe we should send it, we send it to Leslie saying we support that. I mean, Hillary, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think this is like, we can't challenge the statement with Leslie or not. Like, this isn't the forum for that. But I think if we do write a letter, it sounds like we should write it to Leslie directly. And we can CC the other departments we had talked about.
And if I could just respond,
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would also just try to understand if there's a reason why, I mean, the they're people that the NHC has an interest for all the reasons you mentioned, but there are other people who have like even more motivation. And if they are not agreeing with the idea of making the request, I guess it begs the question of why. Maybe there's something to understand there. I don't think you'll be successful unless the chair is also interested in making the request for more staff.
Yeah, you mean the chair of the HCC?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it sounded like based on his comments, he would be. But so Angus or anybody, would you like to?
Make a motion to write a letter and expressing the need and for additional staff, specifically a HTC administrator. And send it to the planning director and CC Libby and the select board and the HTC.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I second that motion.
Okay.
So Angus on your motion,
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
and Sarah.
Aye.
I'm an I as well. All
Rita,
right.
who seconded? Sorry, I just,
Oh,
I'll
yes,
put it
Abby.
no, who seconded the motion?
Oh,
Clement.
sorry, it was Clement.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, that brings us to,
Sorry.
oh,
could
yes, sorry,
I
Hillary,
wanted
yes.
to make one more comment on the findings of the report.
Sure.
It's kind of along the lines of the earlier discussion about process and taking the long, like this commission is the planning commission, right? So taking the long view about how do we best protect historic resources? How do we advocate for policies and resources from the town that will protect the landmark? And I came away thinking that we really need to review and update Nantucket's legislation periodically. And the HCC is just not going to do that. I mean, we've been waiting 6 years for them to update Building with Nantucket in Mind, which is clearly in their purview. I'm not being critical. It's just a fact they don't have time and they don't have staff to do it. But when I think about the genesis of the Special Act, the Special Act was created before Nantucket even had zoning. And I know it's been updated since then, but it was stepping in to fill a gap. The voters of Nantucket preferred to have a commission of people they trusted to review each and every application and decide what was appropriate to build there. They preferred that over having zoning. But, you know, the world has really changed now, and there's many, many more, there's a much more robust law and field of legislation in the zoning world. I just think it might be worth having a conversation at some future meeting about is what we're doing scalable? Are there better ways to do things that would protect our landmark in different and better ways?
Angus.
With this guidance, this is probably your wheelhouse, Holly, but is this something that we could get advice from MHC, or where would we get guidance on sort of keeping up to date with the latest best practices, just to make sure that we've got the best system in place?
So the report really, outlines what should be done and what are good recommendations. Is twofold. One, the Special Act is one thing. The other is the design guidelines and building with Nantucket in mind that has not been codified. looking at, I mean, there's been discussions prior to my involvement with the historic district about looking at the special act versus chapter 40C, which is what other Massachusetts historic districts follow. Because to Hillary's point, obviously, Nantucket's been created prior to any federal or state historic preservation laws. So, you know, do we look at our special act and say we want to adopt certain things from chapter 40C to the special act? I think our special act has a lot more power in other aspects. There could be some definitely good things to bring in, but this is something that is gonna require, obviously, the active town meeting, any changes we do to the special act. And it would have to be, it can't be done lightly, it has to be done thoroughly. You know, at the end of the day, NAPC did a really good job of outlining what their recommendations are based on best practices across the country. But, you know, they can't just indicate the steps to get there because they are not Massachusetts attorneys. They, you know, specialize in just the general law across the country. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it, you know, this is something that personally, I think the HDC needs to take the role. It's their legislation.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously this commission is involved, but you know, again, this commission was started in 2005 based on Massachusetts general law. So obviously there's a vested interest in here, but at the same time, they need to take the process and say, okay, this is what we feel like that needs to be done. Down to, you know, look at the recommendations. A lot of the recommendations that were brought forth are gonna require changes to the special. There's no way around it. Yes, there's things that are low-lying fruit that can be done, and I think the commission is starting to really do that. But essentially, the workflow, the amount of applications, that's not going to change, you know. So I don't know what the answer is and where that starts. But yeah, preservation has definitely evolved since 1966 and especially since 55. To think that that special act was created prior to any federal state laws. And looking at where things could be brought and made more, I mean, staff, for instance. In other places in Massachusetts, a preservation planner in my role would be able to have the authority to approve certain things. Our special act does not allow that at all. There are, you know, and talking to people from outside of Nantucket, they're just blown away that, you know, if I want to change my roof from asphalt to shingle, you know, to wood shingle, I have to go to the commission. Yes, staff cannot do that. And I don't know, what is the answer? 1970, 71, the town didn't realize what this would entail 30, 40, 50 years later. I don't know, it's hindsight's 2020, I guess. So, but I just want to, that's why I publicly got up and thanked the select board for following my recommendation when they wanted to have a review and to not just pick some, you know, no offense to consultants out there, but not to pick a consultant just out of thin air, that it was subject matter experts that know the field and can really provide a recommendations, and I think they did a good job. So.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, you know, I think it's clear that getting in, you know, hiring more staff does not require amending the special act.
Correct.
And that's something, yeah, that we can,
Correct.
you know, we'll write that letter to support, definitely. Hillary, did you have another comment?
Yeah, so I would encourage maybe discussion around some kind of knowledge, some exploration, and maybe even a convening about how large historic resources are managed. identifying some scholars and experts that could come and talk to the community. I think that could be an interesting way to continue the conversation of the work that NACP did, because I would hate to see all of those good recommendations just sort of sit there and not continue to have a conversation about how could we learn, adapt, evolve, and respond to the changing environment that we're in. So I'd recommend thinking about some kind of a conference with some speakers.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I was definitely heartened to see it. There seemed to be a lot of consensus that like nobody on the select board or no one who got up to spoke wanted to see the report just be something that sits on somebody's bookshelf and gathers dust, so. Great. All right, if we're ready to move on, next on the agenda, we had the our NHC fiscal year 2024 annual report. The draft of that was in the packet. If you noticed any typos or if you had any substantive edits, please let me know, either right now or you can send me an email if you notice something later. I would love to get that submitted certainly next week if at all possible, so.
And I'll be providing a review.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
to have
I
that.
didn't notice
Another set
anything.
of
It looked
eyes.
good to me.
Okay, great.
Me too.
Wonderful. So we didn't, next on the agenda, we had commission goals. Abby, I don't know if you have that documented, updated, or,
I do, but it's very similar to the last one. The only thing is there were a couple dates that I just wanted to update. One, was with the survey comments. I had a date of 10/31. I didn't know, Holly, what's next due to you for the survey?
Nothing right now.
yeah, I think if you didn't submit comments,
Yeah,
it's too late.
yeah, nothing right now. Just gotta give feedback, all of it to Pal and wrap it all up. Because MHC also had comments and I haven't seen those.
Okay, can you forward them to the commission? when you
Yeah,
Get the
yeah,
MHC
yep,
comments?
yep.
Great.
So I'm just gonna say Holly is awaiting feedback. You already addressed one thing I wanted to bring up is next week there is a wind farm meeting, the South Coast Wind
Yes,
Farm. Val Oliver had reached out. What I did is she just reached out and asked, if the NHC had a position. I told her we did. I forwarded her a copy of the comments that the CHP had written, and Holly, I CC'd on that email. So I'm going to attend that meeting. Obviously, anyone else is welcome, but just as like an FYI, that meeting is next Tuesday. So I think, Angus, you had also seen the comments. I think we thought the letter was really good that CHP had written. They were just very clear that, the importance of the historic landmark, and also that what is being offered by South Coast Wind really isn't addressing anything to help us at all. So the letter is really good, but also we're just going in person to kind of represent that. So if anybody wants to go to the meeting, again, it's next week, but that's just an update for people to let you guys know that's how it's going.
Thank you.
On that note, Abby, hold on, so I've posted so since that falls on Tuesday, just so you know, as soon as that was planned, like the moment that town administration let staff know this was happening, I was oh my God, this is the same day as HDC. We can't have two weeks without any meetings. Well, this is in the same location, same time, all that stuff. So HDC, for the benefit of the public, will be meeting upstairs in the training room that they used to meet in a long time ago. And of course, that meeting is at 4 and this forum is at 5. So there is a posted meeting for the HDC to go to the forum. We were basically they would be doing is adjourning to go to the forum, and then they would reconvene afterwards, or whatever time that they would want. And we don't know how long this is going to be. But my point is to this, that if this commission is so inclined, maybe we should also have a posted meeting for this commission as well. If we're gonna have a quorum, even if not everybody's going to attend, I think that would be the safest bet. And at the end of the day, you know that Angus represents this commission for section 106. I don't know, sorry, the HDC, and
Yeah,
Abby,
Abby's our
Abby
rep, yeah.
represents you all. And then I represent the NPEC, so of course I will be there as well. Anyways, we're all juggling this, trying to make it work. It's imperative for it to follow the way it has been, because obviously this topic is going to be at the select board the next day. And we all know then Thanksgiving holiday is coming up, and this thing is rapidly approaching. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agreed with CHP's letter, and blessed it before it went out, so.
Yes, so could you send that to the entire?
The CHP letter,
Yeah.
absolutely, yep.
That'd be great. And then just, I'm not sure for any of the other commissioners, there's also, you don't have to attend in person. There's a Zoom
Yes,
option, and it will also be live streamed on YouTube. So,
and I will post a meeting for this commission to attend, just like I did this morning for HTC.
okay, great.
Good, thank you.
That sounds good. And then on the goals document, I know there's, I think there's a line on there about looking into digitization of deeds, and this is something I know that we talked about last meeting, and I reached out to Jen Ferreira, the register of deeds, saying this is something that we had discussed, potentially applying for CPC funding, and she said it's something that's on their radar already. They would use, in terms of digitizing back past book 105, they would use probably the same software and the same company that does the digitization of, all of their new documentation, all the new deeds and records that are, being digitized and added to their online search functionality right now. She did mention that a few different registers throughout the state are potentially looking into switching software. So it doesn't sound like something that would be happening imminently, but she also said that they have the deeds excise funding that they collect could be used to do that
Awesome.
digitization, so they wouldn't need CPC funding. So I said, sounds great. If there's anything that we can do to help or to support, we're happy to, but it sounds like they kind of have that covered, so.
Cool, awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Finally remember.
Any other, all the other goals, everything's the same. The only other thing was, you guys had mentioned earlier, the 2 MHC webinars, the one also on the 19th and then on the 9th of December. So those are the things coming up. And then I know there have been some workshops on coastal resiliency and historic preservation with NHA. So I don't know if you guys have heard of, but I know they're here for a couple weeks. So if I hear of any workshops that would be relevant, I will pass them along.
Great, yeah. Yes.
That's it. And you have it.
I just wanted to say, I'm supposed to hear from them about times and schedule of the final presentations of everybody who's doing presentations. So I'm happy to share that as soon as I can.
Great, and that'll be open to the public, or?
I believe so.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
On Halloween, myself, Matt Fee, and Mary got to talk with the students. I don't know if I really call them students, but they are students from all over the world. And
yeah.
really giving them a very hierarching view of Nantucket and its history, and how government works with preservation and all that kind of stuff. So I thought they had some good questions. And it was nice to go to the Clear Light again.
Great. Alright, so that I think wraps up the goals discussion. Is there any other business? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right, motion
Second,
so made by George, seconded by Clement. George on your motion,
Aye.
Clement,
aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
I'm I as well. Thank you all very much. I'll
Thank
see you next month on December 20th.
Have a nice Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.